Hello, it's Lee Passmore again, and I'm working on a series of Friends of Assisi. The first part was just describing his life, where he lived, message he brought to the world through his life, not through his words. The second was Francis's love of all creation, the creation spirituality, which is so beautiful, the understanding that what God created is good and all of creation is a beautiful reflection of God's creativity and goodness. And our call to go out into creation, into nature, and really experience God in nature, God in the creation. The revelation of God comes through creation as much as it does through the word, the Bible, or so on. So, what we want to look at today in the reflection is peace and reconciliation. And there are three stories that really stand out in Francis's life where it demonstrated his actions in wanting to be a bridge or be an instrument of peace. That infamous song, Make Me a Channel of Your Peace, attributed to the Franciscan community, which really is a tribute to Francis and his desire to be an instrument of peace in the world. So, as I look at the three stories, again, the premise is that what God created is good, and all people, regardless of religion, regardless of color of skin, regardless of whatever creed or belief system, is created in the image of God and is a beautiful creation of God. So Francis would bow before the mystery of that creativity of God. So, one of the biggest challenges for Francis was the lepers that lived around Assisi. In the excavations archaeologically they've found about 12 sites where there was leprosy colonies. So Francis had a real fear of encountering a leper. He didn't understand what leprosy was all about. He was really actually quite um, scared, fearful of that. It was almost like encountering the unknown. And it seemed quite miraculous that one day a leper appeared before him and his inner reaction. And the leper was looking right into his eyes, and Francis looked right into the leper's eyes. And in that encounter, Francis felt the revelation of Christ in the leper's eyes. And the fear that had been in him went and left because he encountered another human being. And it was almost like, they say the eyes are the eye of the soul, that he saw right into this man's soul and being and encountered another human being in this leper. And that forever transformed Francis in terms of caring. For the rest of his life, he spent time in the leprosy colonies, just caring for the people and getting to know them, getting to, getting to know their stories, and respecting who they were. And I think that speaks to us, or can speak to us, in what is it or who is it that we fear, and perhaps we're going to have an encounter. I know for many are homophobic, for many or trans, that's there's a real fear or a judgment or something scary. And often my friends, I've said, so do you know anyone who's gay? Do you have a relationship with anyone? And inevitably the ones who are so fearful or judgmental or not willing to connect, don't have a friendship or a relationship or someone in their family who is gay or trans or has a different sexual orientation than what we're familiar with. And again, it's the unknown that we're fearful of. And in my journey for many years, I have had friends who are trans and who are gay, and in my practice of spiritual direction, of just journeying with people with all sorts of different sexual orientations, and just seeing the wonder and beauty of God's creativity in their hearts. And I think there's an invitation, especially in our day and age, where we're in the midst of all this unrest, and it's very heartwarming to see the youth rising up in protest of how there's been such discrimination. That our hearts be open to encounter the other and really see the beauty of who God created in that person, regardless. And maybe it's mental illness or handicapped or challenged. Both of my nieces have struggled with some developmental challenges, and just understanding how the world perceives them and the battle they've had just to find acceptance. So Francis really invites us to encounter the other and to see the beauty and creativity of God in them. One of the big stories in the Franciscan tradition has been his going to meet with the Sultan of Egypt, the Muslim Sultan. And this was at a time when the Crusades were happening, and Francis had made 3 attempts to get over to Egypt to encounter and to meet with the Sultan. And when he went through the Christian camps, he was just in dismay to see the debauchery and what was going on. He said, "There's nothing of Christ in these Christian camps at all here." And he fearlessly made his way over into what was considered then to be the enemy territory. And he was taken before the Sultan of Egypt. And in that encounter, both of them, they were about the same age, and both of them had they were bantering back and forth in the encounter, but both of them were utterly shocked and surprised to find the humanity in each other, and that they were both so much alike. And Francis just bowed before the beauty of God's creativity in this Muslim sultan. And the sultan recognized in Francis a, a beauty of God's creativity as well. And in that encounter, the Sultan gave Francis the freedom to explore all of the Muslim territory with protection, which was Israel at that point, the Holy Land. So, if any of you have been to the Holy Land, you'll notice that there's a lot of Franciscan places, like at the Mount of Beatitudes, which for me was especially a peaceful, um, spiritually moving place. But that was because the Sultan of Egypt had given Francis the freedom to move through the Holy Land and even to establish some prayer communities there. That is the kind of respect and trust that Francis's life brought forth from the Sultan. So what can we learn from that? Again, we think of people with other or in other religions are the other, but in God's eyes, we're all part of God's creativity and creation, and are called to see in each other our humanity and the longing that resides in each one of our hearts to love and to be known and to be part of a community and to care. And there's a tremendous story of peace and reconciliation in that story of Francis meeting the Sultan. And the third story I'd like us to talk about or reflect on is there's a story, it might be a legend, but the Wolf of Gubbio. So Gubbio was a little town in Italy that was having a terrible problem with this wolf who was ravaging the town and even had killed a child or two. And Francis came on the scene and found out from the townspeople all their fear and what was going on. So he tried to put on the cap of courage, and he too was on a human journey and had to figure all this out and pick up some courage along the way. So he decided to go out and meet this wolf. And so he went out to the cave where the wolf was living, and the wolf came out to greet him. And there's the legend or the story that he said, "Brother Wolf, what is it that's going on here? That you're ravaging these people and creating such fear in their lives." And it seemed that Francis got the message that it's very unusual for a wolf to be on its own. So somehow it got separated for whatever reason from the pack. And the wolf was hungry and was just needing to be fed. And so it's told that Francis made this agreement that the wolf would take care of and be the guardian of Gubbio if the townspeople would feed the wolf so the wolf wouldn't be hungry. So they made this pact and agreement, and that went on for a few years before the wolf eventually died. That all the townspeople would leave food out and make that comfort for the wolf to know the wolf belonged and there was food. So again, we wonder, so how does that message or how does that story speak to us? And maybe you can think about it. How does that story speak to my life? And so I wonder if often when there's anger or rage that we're experiencing from someone or some community, it's because they're afraid and they're hungry. And so the anger and rage that we might be experiencing from communities around us that maybe are there's a lot of injustice going on, racial profiling in Canada. Here our native people have had years of terrible stuff, and so we need to get under the fear, under the ravaging, and find out what it is that is needed. For the wolf, it was food. For maybe some of our communities, it's food as well, or justice, or the opportunity to have um, work, to be taken care of in that way that they can maintain or regain their dignity to provide for their families or to work or to express who they are freely. So it's a real challenge for us to not react to the anger or the rage that we encounter, but to really sit with it and see what's underneath it. Where's it coming from? Where's the hurt? Where's the injustice? And I would like to just end this piece on peace and reconciliation from lovely Francis, who continues to inspire us today, with that peace prayer that is sung and reflected on for so many years, hundreds of years. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring your love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And where there's doubt, true faith in you. O Master, grant that I may never seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there's despair in life, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, only light. And where there's sadness, ever joy. Make me a channel of your peace. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned, in giving to all that we receive, and in dying that we're born to eternal life. So I pray that each one of us, as we find ourselves in this time of unrest, um, that we might find new and creative ways of being instruments of peace, that we might have courage to try to understand the other and to maybe get to know someone who we consider to be another. Who is the refugee? Who is the one that is perhaps developmentally challenged in some way? That I might feel I don't know how to relate to this person. Well, just be yourself and just who are the ones that are being racially profiled. I've been trying to figure out how can I do something or be something. And someone said to me, get educated and really get to know what the stories are. So I pray that all of us might find our way to embrace the leper and to let faith come into where there was fear. So we thank Francis of Assisi, who continues to inspire. So till next time, God bless.